And Buccaneer fans, time for another edition of the Buccaneer Update here on CSUSports.com. Rob Walden, along with the head football coach here at CSU, Coach Jay Mills. And Coach, coming off of a bye week before you get ready for Gardner-Webb on Saturday, you talked to a lot of coaches, and they mentioned how it's tough to get the team focused and really get them to work at a high level when they're practicing during a bye week. I'm curious to hear from you your thoughts on how your team practiced and prepared for Gardner-Webb last week when they didn't have a game coming up on Saturday.
Well, I think it was a tale of two tapes and two ends. We had a solid start, and then we had a lull in the first week. And then we really got a chance to challenge them as a team, and I was real pleased with the way that our team responded. I think it's a great reflection of our coaching staff, of our leadership on the team, and just a personal character that we have on this team. So we responded at the end of last week in an outstanding manner, and we really carried that over after the weekend early this week. So I've been real pleased in our progress. I think we made good strides this week.
You guys were a little banged up after 5 weeks, and most teams are, but we didn't see Andrew McCain play against Savannah State. We didn't see Jarrett Johns. Curious as to the status of those two guys, whether they'll be able to give it a go on Saturday, and just the team as a whole, their health going into the conference opener.
Well, I think one of the things that we have as opposed to the Division I FBS schools is you have 22 fewer scholarships to begin with, and so numbers game is always crucial. And it was a very strenuous first half of the season following fall camp and with our schedule that we had. And so we had bumps and bruises. Thankfully, we've been very blessed as far as major injuries have been kept to a minimum. So Jarrett will be back for this game. Also, Andrew McCain will be back at this game as well, too. And we also battled a little bit of that flu bug, which is kind of evident this time of year as well. But I feel like we got the bumps and bruises along the way, but overall, we're in pretty solid shape.
You've played 5 games so far, and really none of the 5 have been close. The closest game really was a 28-point loss to Wofford back in the second game. This week against Gardner-Webb should be a lot closer. How concerned are you that if you get into a close game with the Bulldogs on Saturday, that you guys really haven't had that kind of experience yet this season?
Well, the experience we've had is playing the number 1 ranked team in the country with the longest winning streak in FBS football. The experience we have is playing a 2-time FCS playoff participant, and the experience we have is playing a Division I FBS opponent that's also ranked in the top 25 and maybe higher in USF. So with regard to experience, with regard to adversity, with regard to challenges, this team's seen the likes of which that no other team has seen before. So am I confident our guys can handle an on-the-road conference opponent? If we're in a situation coming from behind, if we're in a situation where we need to make a goal line stand, things that generally championship teams have to do, I'm very confident that our young men are prepared for every adversity that faces us this weekend and the rest of the year, too.
Let's talk a little bit about Gardner-Webb. Their quarterback, Stan Doolittle, the top passing quarterback in the Big South Conference through 6 weeks. The defensive backfield's going to have to play their best game of the year if you're going to come away with a victory, but also the pass rush, only 3 sacks through the first 5 games, going to have to get pressure on the quarterback if you're going to keep them off the scoreboard and come away with a win.
Well, there's no question about it, and the thing that you look at is defense as a whole and defense as a unit. I feel very confident in our defense. You look at what they've done the last 2 weeks, and again, statistics, what's the saying that liars figure and figures lie? With regard to some of those statistics, again, a couple weeks ago the question was about the rushing attack, and we talked about how our rushing attack actually, for people that are knowledgeable, saw that who we went up against was very positive, and when we got on that level playing field that it would show up. In the next 2 weeks it was over 200 yards rushing a game, and I feel the same way with our defense. You look at a defense that played primarily a rushing team when we got on that level playing field and held them to less than 100 yards total offense, passing and rushing, and again a team in Savannah State that I felt like was probably one of the more improved teams from last year and how they responded. And I've seen nothing but encouraging signs from our defense, both on the progress for the year and also, again, the experience we take with us from some of the games that we've played and the opponents we've gone up against. And now you look at what practice has transpired the last 2 weeks. I really believe our defense, like our team, is peaking at the right time.
You mentioned more than 200 yards rushing in each of the last 2 games. As an offense, more than 1,000 yards combined in the last 2 games. So rather than adjustments and improvements, I got to think that you're hoping to see the same kind of consistent effort from the offense on Saturday. It might be tough to match the numbers that you put up against North Greenville and Savannah State. You're playing a much better team, but still, if they can play to the level that they did in the last 2 games, you got to like your chances.
Well, I believe it's what you said, and the latter part is true. Is what we need to do is we need to play to our standard of excellence and the things that we do, and not be concerned about the opponent. Gardner-Webb is an excellent opponent. Offense, defense, and special teams, they may be as balanced in all 3 phases as anybody in our league. So they definitely will present a challenge to us, and we have tremendous respect both for their head coach and the excellent program that he's developed there, and for the young men in that program as well too. At the same point in time, I really believe that offensively that we've done some special things this year as well too, and not just in the last 2 games, but in earlier moments too. And as offenses generally go, it's usually a amount of flashes early in the year, and then the consistency develops. And I really believe that our offense is developing into one of the better offenses that we've had since I've been here, both the balance in the run game and the pass game, and I really attribute it to these young men and the coaching staff that works with them. I believe that their best football is ahead of them, and I think by the end of the year we're going to see this offense be one of the ones that be compared in the future to.
You have won 3 of the last 4 meetings against Gardner-Webb. Can you point out any specific facets of the game where you feel like you have an advantage and have had an advantage over the last 4 years to enable you to have a pretty good amount of success against the Bulldogs?
Well, and we really felt like we should have won 4 out of the last 4. The game up there was decided really towards the last play of the game, and mistakes made the difference. But you look at each game, and Gardner-Webb was one of the opponents that we really set our sights on when I first arrived here. They were the 2-time defending conference champions, and so you set your marks and your standard to beat the best, and that's what we set out to do, is to really model what they had done with their program, and again the respect that we have for them. But what had occurred over the course of the last 4 years has really been, in the 3 victories, has been 3 different types of games. Last year we won the game primarily with defense and with special teams, having the special team player of the week coming out of that contest. 2006, if you look at that victory, it was primarily a steady showing, but probably offense had a few more of the plays, with Colin Drafts making a couple plays, and Maurice Price and Bryant Birch in that. And they're always team efforts. And then in 2005, the first victory, which really led to the start of things turning around, I think overall, at least competitively in the conference, it was just, again, a total complete team performance. And that's when we're at our best, is we have to have all 3 phases clicking. And against these guys, since there's no really a weak link to them, we're going to need to play our best football in all 3 areas.
Hey, Coach, always a pleasure to sit down with you. Should be a great game Saturday against Gardner-Webb. Best of luck, and we'll see you right back here next week.
Thank you. Look forward to it.
All right, that does it for another edition of the Buccaneer Update. Don't forget that Saturday, the Buccaneers back in action. Their Big South Conference opener, it's going to be at Gardner-Webb, Spangler Stadium in Boiling Springs, North Carolina. And take note of the early start time, 11:30 a.m., the earliest start time of the season. So make sure you wake up early if you're going to get up to Boiling Springs to see the Buccaneers and Bulldogs in action. Of course, if you can't make it in person, remember the game will be broadcast regionally on the Sports South television network. So make sure, if you aren't there in person, to at least catch Coach Mills and the Buccaneers on television. Like we said, that does it for another edition of Buccaneer Update. For Coach Mills, I'm Rob Walden. We'll see you next time here on CSUSports.com.